Sorry. I think I got a live mic. Oops. Alberto. Check, 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 check. Check, 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 check. Let me see if this is actually going. I guess I'm gonna need headphones, huh? Check, 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 check. Check, 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 check. Let's see if this is actually going. I guess I'm gonna need headphones, huh? Check, 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 check. So this is just a pre-show. I may have a very, very, very special guest today. We shall see. Actually, oh yeah. What was the? I have to figure out how not to hear myself while being able to hear the guest. Hey.
How are you? I love your hair. Look at that. I love. When did you get that?
Oh man, 2015 when I lost all my flap.
No way. You lost all your flap.
Yeah, man, when I was losing all my weight, my hair all
You're
came
so
out.
funny. I'm surprised that you don't have you can't see through.
Oh, I used to be able to, but I don't like seeing them, so I covered it all up. Yeah, come check it out. This,
Yeah.
Olivia Cargile's upstairs. Yeah.
Oh, is she? Can you check my phone with it? You guys want to check it?
Yeah. So these guys just came back from the show last night. That's the door. He's another band that kind of took over for the Random Weirdos. So they're all on holiday now. Sloan's in another band now. She's like 16 or 17. So he's in Operation 7.5, which is our main band. And then this Iron Lotus. These guys. Well, Jackson's 3 bands right now. 3 or 4 bands. Always doing something. Olivia's up there. Okay, play something for Charmaine. Yeah, I don't know how I did this. I'm trying to remember how I monitored so that I could hear. Let's see. Yeah, what the hell? How was I doing it? So I was making it so Phil could hear me, but I couldn't hear me, and I can't remember what that was. I think I just turned off monitoring and OBS. I can. Let's see. So if I turn off. How do I? Oh, I think I know what I'm doing. Yeah, actually, probably not. So if I just put it on monitor off, but it still outputs, I think that's how I did it with Phil on there. Positive. Yeah, if I can get you on the stream, about 5 minutes, I gotta show this. I gotta show this scroll to somebody, and then see if I can get on the. Actually. Oh no! Wait, are you on Skype or are you on Messenger? Wait, did you Skype in? How the hell did you do that? Oh yeah, it says call started. What the hell? Okay, wait a second. Let me try and add that NDI source then. So I'm gonna. Let's see. It says source name. Oh, why isn't it doing it? I'm just gonna add another one. NDI source. No. No, this should. Shoot, it's not showing me that I have Skype. It's not showing that you're on there. Why is that? It says that we're started a conversation. It says call started. Yeah, 5:23. So you're still on here? Okay. Oh. Yeah, see what happens. Yeah, you probably won't be able to. Yeah, you probably have to close this call, but yeah, see if you can talk to me on Skype. Oh, I see you. Okay. Okay. Oh. Uh-oh. I see you on OBS? No, do I see you on OBS? No, I don't see you on OBS. Why don't I see you on OBS? Hold on. Oh. I see you on Skype. And I'm hearing me still, which I shouldn't be hearing. Why am I hearing me? Oh my God. Oh yeah. I'm hearing like 4 different delays. Okay, NDI source. So NDI source. Oh, there we go. Burn.
I can still hear you. I hear you talking.
Oh, there you are. All right.
La, 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 la. Now I see myself coming back through. Oh no. Pipeline is using a device that could record or broadcast this call. No.
Yay, look at this. Okay.
Oh, look at that.
So now why am I hearing me? There's the
I can still hear
problem.
Sounds like a you problem, man. Not a me problem.
Okay, now I don't hear you. Crap. Okay, so I was monitoring through Facebook. I see you.
Okay.
I have to change you to.
Dum-da-da-dum-dum.
Oh, now I hear you. So NDI source, I monitor and output. Okay, try talking now.
Oh man.
All right.
I can hear me.
Okay.
I can see me up there on the screen. Yeah, on the screen. Yeah.
All right, and can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh my God.
You are acoustically audible. Obviously.
Awesome. Okay, anybody out there who can actually hear our voices relatively some kind of similar level? That's the other. Like, man, it's sad. Like, nobody should ever hire me as an audio engineer because I sure as hell can't get this kind of crap working.
Is that how that works?
Yeah. Oh, hey, Sam Chandler. Did you move to Kailua? Oh, good.
Wait, you're not.
So
Are you
is
live
the
right now?
yeah, but
It's like you're live.
is the restream chat relay actually moving, getting across to where you can see it, Vern?
I'm seeing right now because I'm just in Skype. That's
okay.
all I'm in. I haven't joined the actual stream to watch it online, but I'll try it.
I'm not
and see
all
what the
smart
hell
like you
happens.
guys with your YouTubes and super chats and all that stuff, so I need to work that out one of these days. But
Wait, is it on YouTube or is it on?
it should be on YouTube, Facebook, and I think that's it actually. YouTube and Facebook. But let me show this. Let me show somebody around real quick. Hold on.
Doo-dah, doo-dah.
Okay, sorry about that. So I'm trying the, what am I doing here? Let me see if you can see this. Narration mic, filter. What am I running here? Oh, I'm running Fab Filter and Tri-Leveler on in OBS, but seems to be working. Well, crap. I don't know where I was supposed to show somebody the school, and then she was watching the band play, so maybe she should take care of herself. So let's see. If you're ready, this is a pretty informal show. It's nothing cool like you guys do, but
This is a show?
yeah, it's
just helping you test microphones. And shit.
it's a weekly semi-show. Usually, it's just a ranting monologue about audio engineering nonsense. But sometimes I have guests on.
I can't. It doesn't work. What the hell?
Yeah. But I guess I'm just gonna start it. So I think this is what the name? What's the number of this thing? Okay.
Dropping in at Pipeline Audio 44 in FSM's name, Ramen.
Yes. So that voice you just heard is somebody I've been trying to get on here for a very long time, almost as long as I've been trying to get Jim Roseberry. Jim Roseberry, damn it. And so this is Vern Grainer. Is that how you say your name, Grainer?
That is correct, sir.
All right. He is the technical audio guy behind some of the longest running secular shows on public access YouTube. If you even know what that is, public access used to be a thing back in the day. Old people had these boxes that you would watch from across the room, and they would you could broadcast things into them. You had like 3 or 4 channels, and about 1 a.m. in the morning they went off, and it really wasn't anything to watch. You had to read books and do things like that. So before things were even called podcasts, I think the main show on there, the Atheist Experience. But actually, Vern, how long you been on that? You've been in doing those ACA shows?
I've been working with them about 5 years now.
Wow. So, you guys have seen so many times how much trouble I have setting up just as these basic shows. And I think you might have remembered a long time ago, longtime Reaper fans, Reginald Finley, who had a show called The Infidel Guy. Again, before there was even called it podcasting. To me, he's the godfather of podcasting. But he would have trouble every single show starting up. And a lot of the things that he ran into became a lot of the more live features of Reaper, such as the Shoutcast server plugin and some of the other things. And I first met Vern virtually because there was a show with Shelley Segal, and I think they're pretty much playing through their broadcast mics. And this thing sounded like one of those things that I took hours to mic an acoustic guitar, and no matter where she was, Vern has some magic trick about off-axis mics, and no matter where she was facing and how far away she was from the mics, the whole thing sounded consistent like a studio recording, and I was pretty amazed. But since he's been around, so if you guys have been watching these shows for a long time, they used to be pretty sketchy, at least in the first 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes sometimes. But since Vern's been around, it's been pretty incredible. So that's what I've been trying to get him on here. Yeah, Vern, first of all, what is your background? Like, how did you learn to become the leader of this new type of newfangled technology?
Oh man. So, yeah, the reason that I started doing stuff with the ACA in general was because I was a big fan of the show. I really enjoyed listening to the Atheist Experience and to their podcast. And when they moved out of the commercial studio that they had at the Austin Access television studio, and they tried to kind of roll their own, they just went out and bought a camera and a mixer and dropped it into a building, and they figured that it was like just gonna work. You just had to buy the equipment, and that's all they had to do. And so if you watch some of the shows, they're still up online, and you can see that just about every show started out with either audio was missing, or somebody's mic was off, or it would end up being the first 5 minutes of the show, you're hearing like just one person's mic, and the other person's mic is either switched off, or their gain is way down, But I move that over here.
Sorry, I was just talking about in the background, but I've got it muted, right? Or is that still going through?
No, I thought you were talking to me, so I just let it.
Oh, no. Go ahead. Keep talking about the ACA here. Sorry,
okay, yeah.
everybody.
So yeah, the bottom line was that they had so many problems, and it was so frustrating for me because my background, I worked in commercial radio, and then I did studio production work and live sound work with a number of different acts, and so I've been involved with music and PA gear, either professionally or as a sideline, pretty much since I was 18. This is probably around 1981, 1979, 80, thereabouts. When I first started playing with gear. So I literally looked up online where their new studio was located, and I drove down and parked in front and walked in the front door, and Mark Vandenbrake, who's the producer, was there, and I knock on the door, and he says, "Well, hi, can I help you?" And I said, "Well, maybe I can help you." And so I kind of said, "Look, I'm an audio engineer, and I've been listening to the show, and you guys seems like you're having trouble." And he's like, "Oh, you know how to run this stuff? Here, come here." And he just brought me straight back into their, into their control room, and points at this little Behringer mixer, and he's like, "Do you know how this works? Because we don't." And so that was kind of the way in. I just started out doing it that way. I just started out by showing up every Sunday and just slowly but surely working the kinks out of the system, which is kind of culminated with where we are now, where we're using a Behringer XR18 as our primary mixer now for the entire system.
So, what is your secret? So, even a recording engineer, guys, we want to know this. What in the world was your secret for off-axis miking? Like when people aren't pointing the way, these guys never point the right way. I always see Matt getting ready to yell at somebody off screen. So, he's never on axis. Nobody's ever on axis. And when Shelley Segal played, she was the distances were incredible. There was a close, there was far. You guys need to watch this. I'm not sure what you would search. Shelley Segal.
No, I can throw it into the YouTube chat if you want.
Okay, yeah, because that was unbelievable. And so, yeah, we all need to know how in the world. And I think you had the same mic you're talking into right now. It was one of these. Yeah. But what is that mic?
Audio Technica AT2020.
And is that what you had? What was the miking setup that day that she was on?
That it was exactly that. In fact, let me do this really quick. Let's see if that works. Does this work? Maybe. Are you getting video from? Yeah, it's not showing up on the. Oh well, I tried. Tried to see if I could share it. Yeah, so there it is right there. That's where you can see her with the mic right there. But let me see here. This is her doing the intro right here. Her and Matt. Yeah, the audio won't go, but you can see it right there. So if you want the URL for it, the URL is now pasted into the chat there. No, the acoustic was straight up acoustic. It was being picked up by that mic. Yeah. Well, so, there was really no, it's like here. Hold on, let me open Xair up because this is the interface for the mixer. So this is the Xair interface, and this is my mic. This is one that I'm on right now. And for her mic, I was doing something similar to what I'm doing here. First off, I had it a pretty hot gain. I was running probably close to 35 or 40 dB on mic gain, so I was giving it a lot of gain, and that gives me a lot to push into the compressor. And then I was running the compressor setup so that I think I was running probably somewhere around a 5, maybe 4-to-1 ratio with a soft knee, and that just kind of let me allow her louder sections to be pushed down and the quieter sections to be brought up. So that's part of that. You're like, oh, it's magical that that she's not dropping out. And it's like, well, it's compression that's doing that. And then additionally, I didn't have it inserted, but what I do on the main is I insert the stereo combinator, which is a 5-band compressor across multiple spectrums. And so that way, if there's that proximity effects, you get too close to the mic and you get very bassy, and it'll then push it down. So if she leans back a little bit and gets thinner, it's not going to push that low end down. And that really helps to kind of balance the spectrum. So I'd say the combination of having a pretty high gain and a decent compression on the channel itself, plus a stereo combinator, and then also I was bringing in some chamber reverb behind her to kind of round it out. And that's pretty much what it was. And to be honest, it also helps enormously that she was really an amazing musician, and she was listening on in-ear monitors, so she was hearing what I was doing, and she was also able to hear herself. And so she was like rocking back from the mic if she was going to get loud, and then leaning forward if she got quieter. And it's like that helps as well. But I mean, that's really pretty much what it was. That was all that we had, because I had no other equipment than just the AT2020 that was in front of her, and it was picking up her voice and her guitar. And then the AT2020 that was in front of Matt was just picking up his ukulele. And he doesn't sing, and so that's all there was for this setup right here, was just this AT2020 setup, and it was kind of equidistant between where her mic was and where her voice was, and they're good sounding microphones and a little compression. That was all the magic there was.
So I can't resist this because I have the chance, but as a Hawaiian, I have to tell Matt that his use of the ukulele is cultural appropriation. Never mind that instrument's actually from Portugal. Ahead. So, but anyway, so for those of you guys who aren't seeing this but can only hear this, let me be real clear. What Vern just described as a setup was the regular channel compressor that comes with the Behringer X, like the X32, Midas M32, Behringer X18, and basically a multi-band compressor that also comes with those things. He was able to take one mic from way too far away and gone in the wrong direction for a lot of it. And with the multi-band compressor and a regular compressor, make it sound pretty good. You go listen to this, and you'll see what we're talking about. Me and Phil Zio were kind of tripping out, when we're really, in general, there's a lot of conversations on that show, and they can get pretty loud, pretty quiet, and just kind of all over the place. And I think so. Do you use the auto mix function thing live on the air ever?
Yeah, we do. It's engaged for every show. Now during the Shelley Siegel musical number, it was not engaged because there's the auto mix is based on the Dugan auto mix system, and the Dugan auto mix system was designed to allow you kind of the maximum amount of gain before feedback. And the way that you would do that is that it was really designed to be used in like if you're going to do a panel of speakers, so you've got 8 or 10 or 12 microphones open, or let's say you're going to be using something using something in a political forum where you've got 24 mics that are open in like a House of Representatives kind of situation. So you've got all these microphones, and if you have somebody there that's just going to unmute the mics when someone is supposed to talk, you're running a big risk that you're going to end up not have someone come through. But if I leave all the mics on and just bring them up, that many microphone elements, you start getting, you're picking up so much of the room, you're going to start feeding back almost immediately. So the idea behind the Dugan Automix system is that you give multiple inputs into the Dugan Automix system, and you tell it to listen to all of the inputs that are assigned to it, and then pick whichever one of them is loudest to give priority to. So if you have 8 microphones and person on mic 1 starts speaking, then the gain on mic number 1 gets boosted, and all 7 other mics get their gain dropped. So then if somebody is talking on mic number 1 and somebody on mic number 2 starts to speak, and they're talking at equal volume levels, it'll then have mics 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 will all be down, and then mics 1 and 2, they'll have their gains balanced between the two of them. So the idea behind this is that it gives priority by boosting gain on whichever mic is active and is actively producing signal. So by doing this, it made it so that during the show, like when we're doing a regular episode of The Atheist Experience, you'll usually have a host, a co-host, and a caller. And all 3 of those are added into the auto mix system that the Behringer mixer offers. In fact, this is what it looks like here. And to bring it in, you just simply turn auto mixing on and then select the channels that you want to have included as part of the auto mix system. And then you can see here, it starts to drop the volume on the channels that are not active. So this channel is active, so its gain isn't being dropped, but then all these other channels, their gain is being dropped. So that way they're not participating, they're less participating in the signal.
Wait, that's what the blue lines are? I was wondering what those blue lines were.
That's correct. You see when I'm stopped talking?
Yeah.
And starts playing up on the others. I've got this muted because if I do that, I'll feed your own audio back to you, and I don't want to do that. But that's the point of this, is that it actually goes in and you can say these are participating in an auto mix system, and what it's doing is it's then automatically boosting the gain and dropping the gain, boosting it on the person who's talking and dropping it on the people who are not. And where this really helps out is that when it drops the gain on the channels that aren't talking, it really helps the noise gates work. So I have it set up so the noise gates will close when the threshold, when it gets below a certain threshold, it'll close the gate, and that way we don't end up having the audio coming through. And when you've got a host, a co-host, and the phone caller all participating in that, when the phone caller is talking, it brings a gain up on that phone caller, and then the host and the co-host microphones drop below the threshold, and both of their gates shut. So the only thing you're hearing during the call is the caller's audio. You don't hear the breathing of the host. You don't hear the room tone. You don't hear the audience sounds. You hear nothing. You're only hearing the caller. And the whole purpose of the design of the system is to make it so that the clarity of the conversation is utmost importance. We want to make sure that when you're listening that you're not going to be thrown off by, someone clearing their throat or rustling papers or clicking a pen. We don't want that to draw your attention away from the things that are being talked about, because that's the important part of the show.
Wow, because you can choose the USB source as the input, I wonder if I couldn't just use this thing to mix my my thing as well. Send some to Skype outs to the USB outputs. Or now that it does Wasapi, I wonder if this is doable actually.
If you have multiple sources, then you should be able to use it for that. There is one other very useful function in the AutoMix. It's in the Behringer, which is this little checkbox here that says last gate. And the way that works is, let's say in my example where I have a host, a co-host, and a caller on the phone. And let's say Matt is the host and the caller on the phone, and they're talking back and forth between each other. So Matt says, well, that's ridiculous. You should prove it. And the caller on the phone goes, well, I don't know, Matt. I don't think I have to prove it. And then Matt says, well, have you ever thought about whatever? And once he says that and he stops talking and waits for the caller to respond, let's say the caller is thinking about it and doesn't respond right away, you run the risk of having all of the gates close. You could have a system where essentially, like, okay, if Matt asks the caller a question, the caller doesn't respond, and so the caller's not saying anything, so his gate shuts, and then the co-host is not talking, so their gate shuts, and then Matt's just asked a question, he's waiting for an answer, so his gate shuts. If all of the gates shut, you lose the room tone. And the minute you lose the room tone, you get that digital silence, because essentially you get nothing at that point. And it can be really disconcerting, especially for people that are like listening on headphones or earbuds or something. You can get that really claustrophobic thing where it just goes shunk, and there's just no sound at all.
Yeah, we call that comfort noise.
Right. So by turning on last gate, what it does is it looks to see who was the last person that was getting priority through the AutoMix, and their gate is disabled. So that way what happens is, if Matt goes, well, what do you think? And he stops talking, you'll hear the room tone because his gate won't shut. And it's a really neat function to use within this thing. And again, there's been so much in the sound design for the shows that has been evolved over the years. So, I've been there just about 5 years now, and I've been slowly advancing what we're doing, trying to give us the best and most professional sounding show that I can come up with. And these are just some of the things that we do to try and make it so that, people that are listening to the show are not going to be distracted. They're not going to have trouble hearing the show. And that's one of the things that we do, is we make sure that type of disconcerting, distracting kind of technical problem is not going to interfere with the show.
That's cool. So one of the since you're the XR18 and expert here, one of the things that's going on is that I like anywhere else, aside from Austin, which is kind of the live music capital of the world right now. So be glad you're there for this part. Most scenes have no place to play, really. And especially all ages shows are very, very, very hard to get. And we've got a group of mostly punk bands here that are trying to set stuff up. And they did a really good job last night. And I had promised them that I was going to give them a list of a basic PA system that they could have at these clubs, because they're going to have to bring it themselves. Any club that's going to let them do this is definitely not going to have enough money to have their own PA system. So let's see. The first thing I really, I know you used to do the real PA stuff too, the shows and everything. Oh wow. Oh yeah, that's right. Awesome.
That's the board that I use. That's a picture from probably 85, I would guess. In fact, the weird thing is I'm wearing the same headphones.
Wow. What board is that? It's
a PV Mark III.
Oh, okay.
It's PV Mark III here. This is the board. This is a good picture of the board right here. You can get a feel for it. But yeah, that's old school, man. That's all we had back then.
Is that a Tascam 302 cassette player?
225.
325.
Tascam
okay.
225. It was. I didn't have the rack ears, so I just had to. I think I had like foam rubber in here to hold it in place.
Man, look at all that stuff. Oh wow.
Yeah, so there's the right hand rack. That's the EQ for the monitors. A little MIDI verb 2 in there, and then I had a couple of micro gates and a micro verb. This is a DD2000 or DD1000 Ibanez delay, and then this is a GC2020B Yamaha compressor, and this was the spectrum analyzer and the EQ that I had for the mains. And you can see what I had to work with as far as channels. You had gain, you had I guess this is monitors 1 and 2, and then you had 4 bands of EQ, and then 2 effect channels and a pan pot and a pre-fade listener, and that's it. Wow. I mean, so yeah, there wasn't a lot to work with back then. But I'll tell you, you spent probably, a board like that probably cost you $200 a channel to buy a board like that. So it was a $5,000 mixing console back then.
Yeah, and back then gas was less than $1 a gallon, and you could buy a house in Hawaii for $100,000. So put it in context. So what I
and here's my PA. This is my PA. So back then, those are the mains that I used back then. A couple of CS800s and a 400, and then it was a full tri-amplified stereo system.
That is nuts.
Oh yeah, this young lady there on the top of the PA system. She's actually in the other room now because I married her 35 years ago.
Oh wow! Good job.
That's my wife.
Awesome.
Still have that guitar too.
Oh wow! And what are those PV amps? Those big square things?
Oh hell yeah! Those are CS800s, man. Those are the real deal, man. Those are heavy iron. Jeez. Some seriously heavy amplifiers, man.
Wow.
And that's a phase linear 400. Those were for the compression horns, and these were mid range, and this was lows. So I ran full tri-amped PA system.
Wow. So last year, I think it was last year, maybe it was the year before, I was on a tear to really understand how our new mobile guitar processing stuff was going to go. I thought that the iOS guitar stuff had reached a lot further than it did, but that was the subject of many other shows. So, but one of the things that I was doing was getting into the world of full range flat response speakers, and even back in the 90s, I used to play early modeling amps through a PA speaker, and so I was already kind of doing this. So the speakers that I put on the list for these guys were. What I ended up getting was an Alto TS210. It's a crazy loud speaker, self-powered, full-range flat response. It's got a 10-inch speaker in it, and a tweeter, and 2 mic preamps on it. You could use it as its own little PA, but
right.
It's shaped so that you can use it as a monitor or whatever, and it weighs less than 20 pounds. I mean, it weighs nothing, but it's crazy loud. But so I put 5 of those, but they don't make those anymore. They make the 3 series now. So either the 312 or the 310 or the 315. I don't even know which one, but I would say get 5 of those, and because you can use 2 of them as the mains and 3 of them as the monitors. And we're talking small scale shows. Like there's no real estate in Hawaii. So these shows are all going to be pretty small. So I was thinking of those, the Behringer XR18. I don't think they make a fader hardware version of that thing anymore that has hardware faders anymore.
The X32, but the X32 Producer Edition I think is the one that has 16 sliders because it's a physically smaller board, but I don't know. I don't know if it's necessary if you know where you're playing and if you have a sound person that can set it up in advance and get you dialed in.
Yeah.
Is there a reason that you wanted to do physical floor monitors rather than in-ear monitors?
I think the complexity of you're talking Hawaii is not known for its technical prowess or ability to willingness to learn things. These guys are all good people, and they are, but it'd be very hard to get in-ears and they're not going to want to touch each other's in-ears during shows and stuff. So yeah, I guess you'd have to get piles of them. I would actually. So what would be a good easy in-ear system that you would use for a show that's going to have maybe 5 different bands on in a night?
Well, I guess, I can see what you're talking about in regards to, if you've got a whole bunch of different people coming and going and trying to get everybody hooked up with in-ear monitors might be a problem. I thought you were talking about a small band that is going to rehearse together and work together, where they'll work with the XR18. That way you can rehearse together and dial your mix in and then save it as a snapshot, and then pull the snapshot up for whichever band it is it's going to be playing, and then you just change snapshots for by the band. But I guess I know the problems with floor monitors, and just there's a problem of more me in the monitor, which is, it's like there's a battle for supremacy because everybody wants to be louder. They want to hear themselves louder than the rest of the band. And floor monitors, they're always going to be a battle unless you have individual, powered monitors, one for each person. Each person gets their own mix, which you kind of can do with the XR18. I mean, it does allow you have, 6 buses that you can use. So that would, in theory, give you, 6 different, people that you'd be able to, have as separate buses. But the other problem with floor monitors that's just for me, I grew up, floor monitors was all there was. There was no such thing as in-ear monitors. You had, you wore headphones in the studio, but live performance, it was floor monitors, and it was always a battle because the floor monitors would leak into mics. If you had microphones, especially, drums require a bunch of mics typically. And so you've got, 6 mics or 8 mics on a drum kit, plus a couple of overheads. And you got floor monitors that are essentially firing straight up at the overheads. Yeah. So, and every piece of equipment that I bought back in those days was a ridiculous amount of money, plus weight, plus setup time. And so if I had, 8 microphones on the drums, I wasn't going to be able to gate all 8 mics. They were going to have to be open mics during the night. So I'm just, for me, it's like if it's possible to do in-ear monitors, it's just so much better because you can keep the volume on the stage so much lower. And to be honest, it's like I'm suffering the repercussions of loud stage monitoring and loud PA work that I did in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And so, I know I have hearing loss. I mean, I've done my own testing. You just open up Audacity and you can, create, pitches at, 20 and 19 and 18 and 17 kilohertz as a sine wave, and just to see what I can hear anymore. And I really can't hear much above 15 kilohertz, maybe 16. I can tell that there's sound there, but I don't hear tone anymore up there. And that's, well, that's directly related to the time that I spent, working in live sound. And so if someone is on stage, and you've got a guitar amp and some floor monitors and they're blasting away, they may be having a good time, but they may also be damaging their hearing. So it's like that's when you were wanting to know why I asked the question about floor monitors versus in-ears. It's like in-ears just all the way around are better. Because you can get a better personalized mix. You don't have to worry about loud decibel levels that can possibly cause hearing damage. And it creates a quieter stage and allows you to have a better chance of picking up, guitars from their guitar amplifiers without bleeding, and, your floor monitors bleeding into the mics that are on stage, picking up like a horn section or acoustic guitars or that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons the Random Weirdos did so well was that we were constantly, early versions of Reaper Live, before there were Behringers that you could control with iPads and whatever, we were running a, what do you call it? Not Team Viewer, but one of those go to my PC kind of thing. So you were sitting there with a laptop controlling a big rack computer. So the kids were playing. There were no guitar amps. The drums were electronic. So we were able to actually bring the volume down a lot just by not having guitar amps and stuff. They still did have stage monitors, but they often didn't actually. But they would just kind of move up to the PA if they needed to hear themselves. And one of the reasons they were able to get so many shows is that they were very easy to work with because they weren't used to having really good monitors on stage. But in this case, we're gonna be moving bands in quick, and a lot of there's a lot of I don't know if you've ever. It's very conservative. This is the left hook of the Bible Belt down here. It's all Democrats, but they're very, very conservative. So seeing new technology is a little bit freaky for most bands. They're going to want their stupidly loud guitar amps on stage, ruining everything. And everybody, the guys involved know to deal with that. But still, yeah, you're going to... We're probably stuck with monitors for the time being. And so... My main thing is, I was thinking, split these up, make the 3 monitors the 10s, and if you really want, put the 12s or 15s up front. But I'm telling you, the 10 that I have is so crazy loud. Unless the club's really big, I don't. We got the Farmers Market back, which is kind of where the Random Weirdos started getting all their press and everything. And I just had my Alto TS 210. 2 weeks ago out there, and you could hear it from across the street. I mean, it was crazy loud. In fact, it wasn't that loud next to it, but being that it's outside and stuff, the further you got from it, you were still hearing this thing. So, I was thinking basically five of those self-powered speakers, maybe 2 for mains and 3 for monitors, be a different type. But the X18, so I guess that's the XR18. Now, I learned from you not to ever use the onboard router on the XR18. So I used I think mine was a Netgear AC1000. Does that sound right? Something equivalent to the AC1000?
Yeah, it really doesn't matter. Just the step is step 1, remove the antenna and throw it away.
Okay.
It's on the XR18, all of the XR series, the 12, the 16, and the 18. They all come with an onboard Wi-Fi access point that can run as a client or as an access point. And it's terrible. And the problem is that its failure is much more likely depending upon the number and signal strength of the signals around it. So you get a new XR18 and you put it on your desk at home and you plug it in and you hook it up and it seems to work fine. And then you take it out to your first venue and it disconnects from your iPad or your computer, your laptop, and you can no longer control it. And that's just an extraordinarily common thing that we see happen all the time. And I'm in a couple of the Facebook groups that support the X18 and other XR Behringer, the M Air as well, the MR18, which is the Midas preamp version. And it's very common. Everybody's like, I don't know what the hell happened. It was working great in our recording studio or in our garage or on my dining room table, and I took it out to my first gig and it completely fell apart. And so I actually ended up making a new reader thing that said essentially what goes wrong. And the bottom line is the more people that you have at the venue, the more likely it is to fail because it gets overloaded with other signals and it can lose track. And when it does, it's the worst possible thing that can happen because you suddenly have no control over your PA system, none, because you can't move anything. No sliders work.
When we were doing that guinea pig thing at first, I had a little Reaper script that would, who made that for me? Now I can't remember. But I would switch between the clean and distortion myself. So it'd switch both guitars at once. And so if the laptop decided not to respond for a second, boy, was I in trouble, So
I made up a whole bunch of memes that I would use.
I got to show that.
Whenever,
hold on. There we go.
I made up a whole bunch of memes that I would put up onto the group whenever someone would come on that would be new.
So for you guys just listening, that's the South Park pizza French fries episode of Learn How to Ski, and it says if you use the internal Wi-Fi, you're going to have a bad time. And that was I made a whole series of these that I would put up every time somebody would come on, and we would say Wi-Fi is going to fail. Use an external router. Noob uses internal Wi-Fi. It fails. Oh. And so, what do you do in order to make sure that you can get your phone onto that thing? Do you put a password on the router and then just sometimes even if you have a password, it's just there's so many devices trying to talk to the thing that it doesn't know to listen to you. So do you unlist the router first of all? Like it doesn't show. What's it? SSID
first off,
or whatever.
If you're using the internal Wi-Fi, it's going to fail. Just don't.
Forget the internal.
Okay, so if you're using an external Yeah, if you're using an external Wi-Fi, if you have any possibility of doing so, use just the 5 gigahertz band, because the 2.4 gigahertz band, which is the unlicensed commercial band, everything uses it. I mean, I'm absolutely certain that microwave ovens have caused more failures than you can imagine, because the microwave ovens use the 2 gigahertz frequency range. As so if you have a leaky door in a microwave oven, it can take out Wi-Fi. So 2.4 gigahertz is just an overcrowded, overused, terribly congested band. So just don't use 5 gigahertz. The problem with 5 gigahertz is it doesn't go through walls very well, and it doesn't go through things that are. The reason that a microwave oven works is because the things you put in it have moisture in them, and then the liquid molecules are vibrating against each other to create heat, because they're absorbing the microwave energy and turning it into heat. So with the microwave frequency from your cell phone to your Wi-Fi access point, if it ends up going, if there's between those two things, if there's any organic material like trees or plants, or even things like wood and humans, absolutely humans, they will absorb the energy rather than allowing it to pass through. So if you're going to use the access point, the best thing to do is put it on a post or put it up high. So if you can see it, where you can physically lay eyes on it from where you're mixing, and that your tablet has a physical line of sight to that 5 gigahertz, that's your best possible solution.
And do you turn off the broadcasting the name or whatever?
Doesn't really help. As a matter of fact, it can actually cause more congestion, because what happens is you see a beacon, but it doesn't have an identifier on it. So certain poorly implemented stacks can say, "Hey, who are you again?" And it goes, "I don't have a name." "Who are you again?" "I don't have a name." "Who are you again?" And so you get that, synchronizing act going over and over again as it tries to get a name from something that won't broadcast its name. And so it can actually cause more congestion to have the SSID turned off. You're better off just having an SSID turned on and just give it an innocuous name that's like, AP1 or something, or you could have it say refrigerator or, just something that people wouldn't go, "Oh, I got to connect to that thing. Let's see what that is." But even if they do connect to it, unless they've got the credentials, they're not going to get in. So, until they've gotten credentials, they're not going to be banging on it or creating traffic on it. So you set up your access point, preferably on 5 gigahertz, give it, WPA2 encryption, or, whichever encryption is the best that your router offers, and it is also supported by your tablet or your phone. And then go from there. I mean, you should be fine.
Okay, so that's good advice on setting up the router. So the next thing I had on here was 5 on-stage tripod boom stands, and I know they're not great, but they do ship to Hawaii, so that's another thing. It's kind of hard to get a lot of things shipped here, but I found that we have some other mic stands that are pretty cool and clutches, but these things were cheap enough, like $30 a piece. A mini boom stand for the kick mic from Samson, because that showed up cheap on Amazon. 6 Behringer XM8500s. Now I know all the Behringer haters out there or whatever, and most purists are going to say you better have Beta 58s, but they're just going to get stolen, cupped, stepped on, spit in, whatever else, and I'd rather pay $20 for a mic, I think, unless anybody's going to die out there.
Are they XM8500s? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think didn't they do? I thought there was even a cheaper one. I'm trying to remember.
Oh, they do. They have one that's 3 for about that price, but I figure that the 8500. I've heard them. They work. I don't know. Maybe they
nothing
suck.
wrong with it.
I don't know.
Absolutely nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I just I don't know. I am the least gear snobby person that you will ever run up against. I mean, for me, it's like, does it sound good to you? Does it do the job? And does it get it out there? Because I'm more interested in reliability than I am in trying to make sure that this one's got really flat response between 8K and 12K to get the nuances of someone's nose whistle. It's like, who fucking cares? They're going to be doing rock and roll. They're probably going to swing a mic around. They're going to step on a windscreen. They're going to drop it in a beer. You want a microphone that if they do destroy it, it's going to be inexpensive to replace. It'd be different if you were mixing Rush. I mean, but it's like if you've got amateur musicians that are having fun, it's more important that a microphone not die on you, or that you have enough money you can have a spare. I'd much rather have, if you could only afford 4 SM58s, or you could get, 6 or 8 of these 8500s. And that way you'd have 2 or 3 extras, or have an extra mic you could pop onto the stand in case somebody wanted to, hey, there's a saxophone player for this band, or a harmonica player for this band. And I can have a separate microphone for his harmonica that I can spend the time to dial in the EQ. It's like I'd rather have more accessories than, higher end gear and having single points of failure. But that's just me.
Yeah, in fact, we've done several shows on this show thing about how theoretically perfect can really slow you down. We got in a big argument about putting mics on clips on the drums instead of putting them on stands. Yeah, theoretically, the stands could sound a tiny, tiny bit better, but because I got to adjust them every single time, that's all time I could have spent doing something else. And
for live for live stuff, or for
no, this is for recording. But even still, I'll still take the clips. I'm sorry, but I will, because they're already exactly where I know that they're going to sound good, and that's a whole lot less time I got to spend doing that. So I can spend more time making it sound good.
Well, also, maybe someday someone will invent like a multi-band gate that could be used to make them sound perfect, Maybe someday that might happen. Man. Oh, maybe.
The other thing I've done, and we talked about it several times on these shows, in fact, several shows were devoted to it, was, I had people sending me, mic preamps and DIs and junk from all over the world, and actually giving them real-world tests. So I'm very pragmatic about the gear, and very gear agnostic. I believe that all the parameters that matter to us can be tested, and if they test pretty close, I don't care which one costs more. These things are all reasonably flat, and even the XR18, I actually included it on those lists. You can compare it side by side with that Warren Hewitt Neve thing, or the AMX 9098 I've got sitting right here still. So, get gear that works. So if it turns out that the 8500s don't get as much gain before feedback, and it really makes a lot of trouble, then maybe I'll try something else. But so far, every time I've tried them, they've been fine. And so to make this even worse, the next thing I got on the list for the drum mics is the Pile Pro PDK M12. Now, I've done several YouTube videos where I took this $100 microphone set. Comes with 2 little condensers, a kick mic, and then 4 clip-on dynamics. And I got accused of using samples. I got accused of so much stuff when I made these videos. These things can sound just fine, especially they're going to sound good live. So that's $100 for the drum mics. And, feel free. Like, I know I'm going to get flamed again for even talking about these things, but the way I always say it, and remember, a lot of you guys know when I worked at Vintage, we had, I think, the only match quartet of M49s in the world. We had piles of gear at Studio Z with Jimmy. I had think of all those pictures where I'm sitting in front of every mic preamp you could possibly imagine, and I'll still would way rather have a well-written song any day than any of this gear. And so let's see. The other thing I said is to buy 3 of these packs of, and this might be hit or miss. I'm not sure. I've heard reports of sometimes they turn out bad, but I bought all these colored GLS audio mic cables off of Amazon, and they have like these imitation Neutrik connectors, or maybe they are real Neutrik connectors. I don't know, but they all worked really good. So this was, I said to buy 3 packs of these. They're 25 feet cables. They're colored, and it's a pack of 6, so 6 different colors. So this would be 18 mic cables. I'd love to have more, but I think this would be enough for what they're doing. Now, the thing about mic cables, the XLRs, sometimes they'll be soldered crappy. I've had that happen before, but the main thing that I've had trouble with crappier mic cables is that the female XLR pins don't actually squeeze. I've had ways to work around that, but I've gotten to the point where I just cut those things off and replace them with a better cable. But so far with the GLS mic cables, I've never had that problem. So knock on wood that they're still not going to have that problem.
My cables and cables like that are to me are just a commodity. I mean, it's just, you buy the best that you can afford at the time, and then you just keep a soldering iron. You keep in fact, my nomenclature, if you ever dig in any of the bags that I bring with me to any gigs and you open them up and look inside, if you ever see an XLR cable that's got a knot tied in it and in the last 2 or 3 inches of where it is, typically the knot's tied right next to where the XLR connector is, that's a bad cable. It's one that, crackled or made, clicky noises, or it was dead when I got there. And so it's a fairly normal thing for me to do. If I'm going to be doing a gig over the weekend, the Friday before the gig, I'll dig in my bag and pull all the cables out. Any of them that have a knot in them, I'll throw them on the workbench. And I've got one of those cable testers. It's a little Behringer cable tester. You plug both ends in, and then you just shake it around a little bit and see if the lights turn on. It tells you that you're shorted or whatever.
You know what? I'm putting that on the list too.
A cable tester would probably be about a bad thing to have. The little Behringer cable tester was cheap, and it just makes it real easy to test them really quick before a gig. And let's see.
So I still have the. What brand was it? Where is it? It's sitting in here. Oh, right here.
CT100, I think. It's this guy.
Now, I still have a Rapco cable doctor that I've had since 1994. It's sitting in my hand right now. So many famous artists' cables have passed through this cable doctor. It's crazy.
Yeah, this little CT100 is the one that I have.
Yeah, and in fact, that one's actually better. It has more... has more things that it'll test than my old Rapco, and it has more functions. I think was the trick too. It has a test tone, so it'll actually let you ring stuff out, which is really handy. So yeah, I'm putting that on the list too. So that Behringer CT100 cable tester. So that's money well spent, and a lot of hair not being pulled out.
Yep.
That's
and
a
just,
good call.
If you have a source, or if you know how to solder, that's great. If you don't know how to solder, it's probably not a good idea to be testing or learning on the cables. You might want to have someone show you. But it's not that hard to resolder cables, to resolder an end. And then you can actually buy a bag of, good, decent ends that you can grab. And that way, if you've got some that have given up or been, run over by the car, or you dropped something on it and it crushed it, or you can literally just cut the end off, strip it, pull it through there, resolder it, put it back together. It's all of maybe, if you're really bad at it, or if you're really wanting to take a lot of time to make sure it's perfect, you got maybe a half an hour's work to fix one end. I mean, that's tops.
Our kids, and this has always been my snarky response when they're talking about what's the first piece of gear you need in your studio. It's always been the soldering iron. So back in the days, I used to push that Weller WLC, whatever, because it was $40 and you could get tips for them everywhere. All our kids know that they need to know how to solder and stuff. It's an important thing for them. They know how important that is. So if you're working for me or with me, you already know how to solder. So or you're learning, and you'll learn very quick. So that's the thing.
Was it this one here?
That's the one. So WLC 100.
I got one of those. It's in my toolbox. I mean, that's my mobile one that I take out. It's mobile, but I've got a much nicer Weller on my workbench.
So is there another model nowadays that you would take out on the road, or is that still kind of the
no? That is absolutely the one I would take out on the road, especially because it's got that little knob that'll let you adjust how much power. Because I'll drop the power down so that especially if you're not very experienced in soldering, what you can end up doing is applying too much heat, and it ends up causing the insulation to get all mushy and sometimes melt or burn, and you'll lose your insulation. So being able to tone the iron's temperature down, or if you're in a big ass hurry and you need to get it hot quick, you can open it all the way up and get all 40 watts out there, and it'll melt stuff quick.
Yeah, and in fact,
man,
when we're talking about that stuff, if you had to back in the day solder DB25s, which were there's a connector that you would see on one DB25 was good usually for 8 channels of balanced audio. You'd see them on Tascam D88s, DA38s, things like that. Format converters would have those very often. And so you would be just about done with them, and you put a little bit too much heat, and you bent the pins to the point where they're never going to work again. And so one of the things that when we had interns, one of the first projects they did was to take this piece of 2x4 and drill, and they would bolt in every connector that they were likely to see. They bolt in a a male TT, a female TT, a male XLR, female XLR, and a male and female DB25, and they'd bolt it to this piece of wood or through the piece of wood. And from then on, they would just plug the connector into whatever connector they're working on. They'd plug it into that board, and that would take some of the heat away, and more importantly, it would hold the shape of the connector that they were soldering. Whether even XLRs will deform if you heat them up too much. So
Yep.
That little project piece of wood was one of the most important things those guys ever had, and a lot of them still have them to this day. It's just pretty funny. They still have the same piece of wood that they had way back when. So it's actually awesome to see when that happens. And so let's see. The last thing I had on here was and it could be a piece of junk, but I was just going for the cheapest one that looked like it would hold the Pile Universal speaker stand. So just for the 2 speaker stands. So I think that's a whole live PA system. I didn't put a price together for it, but
now, did you include the power cords for each of the powered monitors, because that can get kind of tricky to get wired up?
No, I didn't. I didn't include extension cords either. So let's see.
You might want to. I know that one of the things that kind of struck me, I always was a passive monitors and passive PA guy in the olden days, and you had a great big giant amp rack that weighed 500-600 pounds and took 2 people to move it around. And now with injection molded plastic cabinets and Class D amplifiers, you could have 2,000 watt speaker that weighs 27 pounds. Yep. and no amp rack, but you do have to string power. And I've not tried them because I'm fairly new on the powered speaker thing. I haven't only been about 2 years now using them, and but they actually have these coaxial speaker cable.
Yeah, because now you're talking about you got to have 2 cables, right? You got to have the signal cable and the electrical cable, electrical power. But so
I haven't used one yet, but I've heard of people using these kind of things, where it's XLR and power in a single sleeve.
Oh, nice.
And it's like, and some are like this. This is different styles of these. Yeah, but I've not tried them yet, but I'd be really anxious to see how well they work when it's both an XLR cable, and a power cable in the same shield. And I'm hoping that would maybe, they're not cheap. But I was wondering what it would do for just stage clutter and that sort of thing, because the fewer cables I have to schlep around the stage, the better, because there's less to trip over, there's less to go wrong, less to troubleshoot. So I'd much rather have fewer cables on the stage.
Well, that's a good idea.
The one other one that I heard of, and I'm looking it up really quick, but they, I think Sweetwater had, let's see, stage cable. There's these, I can't remember what they're called, but they're like a come along. Essentially, it's like a 30-foot cable that has an outlet every 6 feet. And so what you do is run it across the front of the stage, and it lets people plug in their pedals, and you can then tap, like a 10-foot cable to run from that up to, or tap it in for running a floor monitor, or even running the front of house.
Well, that sounds handy. Yeah, anything to make it more ergonomic. Like one of the articles that people still ask me about right now is the when I made the one-wire iOS guitar setup, where the only cable you really plugged in was a power cable. Everything else was wireless or was already pre-wired. So you just carried this FR speaker, put your iPad on it, and you were done.
Yeah, this right here, I think, is the one I saw. Something similar to this. Essentially, it has an outlet every so many inches, or you can get them 25, 50, or 100 foot, and at each place it's got an outlet that you can use.
Oh, that's killer.
And so you just drag that across the front of the stage, and then you use that to run your powered monitors. and then also use it. You can use it with a little power strip or something to run, a bunch of pedals if someone's got pedals and they need to plug them in, or even plug in a power amp. In fact, I used to encourage people to set up guitar amps at the front of the stage and use them as floor monitors. They had those little stands that would let you tilt a small amp, and tilt it back.
Yeah. And
so to me, it's like I loved having the guitar player. I want your guitar player to hear. It's like you can't play well if you can't hear yourself.
Yeah.
But then again, having a 412 cabinet, you don't. Last I checked, you don't have ears in the backs of your knees, and that's where you're firing those speakers. And it's like, so that's not, to me, that's just not a good use of power. All you're doing is polluting my front of house. Yeah. So it's like, if you're going to be, if you want to be able to hear yourself, then put that damn amp in front of you. And that way you can look straight down at it. You can look right at the controls. If you need to tweak something, you reach right over and tweak it, and it's right in your face, and you can hear it nice and clean. And you can give yourself as much power as you want right in your own face. It's not going to hurt anybody else in the band. And if you did that, something like this would allow you to have power at the front of the stage to use for that.
Wow. That was a very good call on that thing.
But I've only got something similar to that, but it was something that it was just kind of made up. It was a couple of cables that I just put metal boxes. I don't know if you guys have Home Depot up there, but you can just go to for outlet. I did something similar to that thing that I just showed, but essentially what I did was I just went over to Home Depot and I built my own little power boxes by getting the little metal parts and building boxes that would hold that.
Well, that's handy too.
I'm looking to see if I can find what I was using back then. It's funny, I used to have pictures of all this stuff. I don't have pictures of those. Yeah, there were just these metal boxes. Something similar to this, because you can just put a little metal plate on it and then knock the covers off the ends here, and then just get yourself an orange extension cord and run it in here and cut it, and then hook it to the two outlets. And then cut, and drop it through there. So you make your own version of that cable, just do it yourself. But I don't know if by the time the amount of labor that's involved, and by the time you add up all the little pieces, you're probably about the same cost by buying theirs. I just wanted to have more outlets at each location. Bad to the bone. Hello? You're on the air. Turn off your damn phone. God damn it.
Yeah, fired. Oh, you know what? The guy who was who I was actually making a list for, he wasn't listening on the air. Oh, I got to tell him.
Well, we have, according to this, we have one viewer, so we have the one viewer.
Oh, is that on YouTube or Facebook or what?
That's on YouTube. One viewer on YouTube. I don't know anybody else.
Okay, so well, yeah, okay, so that's the whole PA system.
It's funny, you mentioned something about modeling cabinets, and it's something I wanted to kind of touch on real quick. Yeah. Was there's been it's like, I look at the gear that's out on the market today, and I refer to it as an embarrassment of riches. It's just astonishing to me, the amount of capability that you can buy. I mean, the XR18 by itself is just astonishing. But when it comes to things like cabinet sim, there's two reasons really for cabinet sim. The first reason is for matching. Because if I have, some JBL cabinets or some EV cabinets, and I buy a pair of turbo sounds, and they have a very distinctly different EQ curve, maybe they're brighter or they're boomier or whatever, I'm going to have to try and create a separate EQ curve for each. So the idea behind cabinet matching is that I can take some turbo sound IQs and I can make them match my existing JBL. So I only have to have one one EQ curve because I'm going to have a similar kind of frequency response from the cabinets based on the cabinet simulator so that it's similar in sound. So that's going to be important to make sure that my PA is not unbalanced by having, hey, I've got a whole bunch of Servo and Vegas along the bottom row and then I've got my tops and I didn't match them well. And so now, it's like I'm stuck because it's like, well, do I EQ for the cabinets on the top or on the bottom?
Yeah.
So that's the whole idea behind having the cabinet matching, having the ability to adjust cabinet matching. It makes it to where I only have one to work with. The only other reason that cabinet sim function to me anyway makes a lot of sense is that if they're the only cabinets I have and I like the way that JBLs sound or I'm used to mixing through Electro Voice, I'm going to set it to the cabinet sim that I'm going to be comfortable mixing to. And that's just going to make it easier for me. So to me, those are the real reasons, the only two reasons that I would be looking at cabinet, simulator or that function. And if it's available, I would love to have that.
Yeah, this is actually a very different function than what we're usually talking about when we're talking about cabinet modeling. For us, it's more about making any PA speakers sound like a guitar's 412 or 212 cabinet. So. Are you talking about simulating like in a guitar pedal, simulating an amp, or are we talking about the PA speakers cabinet simulation? Well, it's a couple different things. So at the very end, when we are just talking about speakers, we're definitely talking about making having an impulse like Celestion makes really good impulses up, being able to make any full range flat response speaker sound like a guitar speaker. So don't never mind the nonlinear part of the amplifiers, distortion, and any of that. Just the EQ curve itself that the speaker would impart. And back in the day they did actually do it with EQs. Red Box was kind of a famous version of that, but it was never that good. But once convolution technology came out, it's really good. And is either me or Beam Sonic who actually made the very first cabinet impulse. Guitar cabinet impulse, and nowadays that's an industry, and like every other business move I've ever made, I didn't capitalize on it like an idiot. But now that's an entire industry, and I do not mic up guitar amps unless I absolutely positively have to. I'll never, and I'll say this again, like everybody can flame me all you want. The idea that you in your bedroom are gonna get a less phasey, less problematic sound by putting some 57 on your amp rather than a professionally done impulse done inside a purpose-built acoustic chamber like the chunk chamber we had at Vintage or whatever. You're gonna forget it. But I mean, you may come up with a sound that you like. You may get a phase problem that you actually like. And in reality, our guitar amps, our guitar speakers are not perfect. They have their own pluses and minuses. Yes, that's that's almost Hawaii's almost as bad when it comes to miking cabinets. They actually point the mic at the ground, which is, but any day if I can bring this, well, for one thing, with the amp modeling, at least the speaker side of it, you can get the cabinet, you can get the stage volume down by miles. That's a big problem right there. That's a big solve right there. And you're going to get out the PA system. You're going to get so close to the sound of an ideal guitar amp, mic'd in isolation without the drums and all this other crap bleeding into it. But then there's another side of modeling where you're going to get a way more religious debate. I mean, the impulse versus actual speakers is one nasty religion-filled nonsense thing. But when you're talking about actually modeling the non-linear parts, the distortions and everything else of amps, now you're bringing up football teams and politics at Thanksgiving. That's the really crazy one. But yeah, you know what? I think we covered everything I wanted to cover. I really wanted people to. I really need people to go and watch some of Vern's videos where you watch all this off-axis stuff, and this thing still sounds. It sounds like they're just pointing at the mic the whole time. It's absolutely incredible. I don't know how you explained how you pull it off, and like the secret sauce was a compressor and a multi-band compressor. But
Well, and I'm also running gain a little higher, I think, than a lot of people would. It's like, and I do end up boosting my noise floor, but then again, by the judicious use of gating plus the auto mixer, and then to be honest, if you listen to the podcast version of the show rather than the video version of the show, it's actually a different version of the show because when the show is over, I actually use Isotopes RX7, and I do click reduction, mouth noise reduction, and I also do identify and remove noise floor. So it's like I do a whole bunch of stuff after the show is over, just for people that are listening on the podcast, so that way they're when they don't have the video to look at as well, to kind of help guide them. I want the audio to be even cleaner.
That's neat.
So that's the whole idea, is to try and make it, so that people can be heard. And again, hot gain, I'm running a little hotter than some people probably would like to see, especially on digital gear. I'm kind of playing. I don't think I've run into too many situations where I've run into digital noise, digital distortion from clipping a channel. I've gotten close. My problem child is our good buddy Eric Murphy, the host of Talk Heathen.
Oh yeah, he talks so quiet for the most part.
I know,
and he gets so loud.
There you go. He is my contrast guy, because he'll be like, I totally understand what you're talking about, but it makes me mad, So he goes this really quiet, and he doesn't eat the mic when he gets really quiet. He'll be way back here when he's getting,
man,
and you're like, you're killing me.
I see him. Otangelo.
Oh. Yeah. Well, the other one that gets me, and I have to be honest, I give a lot of credit to these AT2020s. It's like I'm on one right now, and even if I'm turning, off axis, I'm turning probably 45 degrees there to my right, and there's 45 degrees to my left, and then talking across it as I go, and it's like, you can hear there's more sibilance when I'm straight on the microphone, but as I get off axis, but you're not hearing a whole lot of difference in volume level. And I'm really not running, much in the way of compression on this channel, although I'm running that multi-band, but you can actually see it right here. I'm running 40 dB. You can probably hear my room. You can hear the fans and stuff in the background if I stop talking, although I am gating on mine. And you can see I'm just barely tapping compression for this channel. But yeah, the combination of, a hot gain, a good channel compressor that's built into the unit itself, and then the multi-band compression that I use on the final pass, and that gives me a lot to work with. And the mic itself is pretty damn good to start with. I'm pretty happy with how it comes out.
Oh. All right. Well, I think we covered everything. I'll be excited to get you back on when we have the actual audio roundtable going. And I mean, you are running in a different kind of career type than most of the rest of us, but I mean, the crossover is intense, and if we can get their off axis stuff to work like you do, miking things would get a whole lot easier,
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I came from that. I mean, I came from live sound, and so I had to unlearn a lot of stuff, because the thing that is actually kind of your enemy in the spoken word is dynamic range. Dynamic range is not going to be a good thing to have a lot of when you've got spoken word, because when you're doing music, triple piano to triple forte, that is emotion. That's how you convey emotion, is by giving a solid difference in dynamic range. It's a part of emoting the music itself. But when it comes to, I'm trying to follow a philosophical argument, but if someone is trying to make that point, and in the process their voice goes like this, and then suddenly their voice is back again, it's like you're gonna get like, what? Wait, what did he say? What? And it's harder to follow. So I had to unlearn everything about like, I need to have something that looks like this when I'm done, a solid bar. Not something that, looks all, dynamic in the way it looks in the editor. It should look like a bar when I'm done with it, in order to make sure that someone who's got in a pair of earbuds and they're on a treadmill, or they're on, they're mowing the lawn, or they're riding a bicycle, and they can't easily reach over and adjust the volume up and down. I want to make it so they can turn on the podcast, plug in their headphones, get a level, and take off, and they don't have to touch it for the rest of the show, and they can follow every word. And that's the goal.
That's crazy that, but that's true. It's very annoying to listen to a podcast that is all over the place, and but it's funny because for us on the recording side, we're constantly complaining about the brick, but it's it makes perfect sense that's what you need when you're talking. But okay, so this thing is just about as long as it can possibly be, and still get uploaded for the plan that I actually use. So thank you very much for being on. I've been trying to get Sean here for a while, and I'll see you back in our group as soon as I'm done uploading this thing. So thanks a billion for being on, Vern, and everybody go check out the shows that he's part of. So that's actually name them. Let's hear all the different shows you do your audio for.
Oh, let's see. So every Sunday at 1:00 Central Time is Talk Heathen, and then Sunday at 4:30 p.m. is The Atheist Experience, and Friday nights at 7 p.m. is Truth Wanted. And then the first and third Sundays of the month between Talk Heathen and Atheist Experience is the Nonprofits. And we've just made the announcement that we're rebooting Godless Bitches. I'm not sure what their schedule is going to be, but they may be the second and fourth Sunday, but I'm not really sure on that. And I'm going to be engineering Godless Bitches. And the only other show, but I don't actually regularly audio engineer on, would be Secular Sexuality. And they're on every Thursday at 7 p.m.
And then what's the parenting one? Is that
Parenting
still
Beyond Belief? That show right now is waiting for a producer reboot right now. So that one hasn't had a new episode out in quite a while. It's been about 6 months, 4 months, something like that.
Okay. Well, so that's where you can go and hear Vern's extraordinary off-axis and proximity effect not happening mic techniques. So thank you very much for being on, and I'll see you later, and whoever's actually out there listening, I'll see you next week. And so goodbye, and